Okay, first a show of hands. Who looks forward to Christmas? Easter? Even Advent often gives us a sense of excitement. But I'm afraid that can often be simply the excitement of Christmas being around the corner, rather than what the season of Advent might be about. Then there's Lent. Who looks forward to fasting, prayer, almsgiving? Allow me a brief confession. I pull out that red breviary, set the ribbon to Ash Wednesday at the very beginning, and then wonder, will I make it to Easter? The real question, however, should be, what does God have for me and for us in the next 6 weeks? We begin the season still in winter, when everything looks rather dead around us, and end in the beginning of spring, when life itself seems to be approaching from every direction. Like in life, where at least in Michigan, you have to go through winter to get to spring. In the church, we go through Lent to get to Easter. And in this season, the church gives us some of the most dramatic stories, such as the Exodus from Egypt, and readings from the major prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah, as well as the minor prophets, such as Joel. It's actually the prophet Joel we hear from in today's first reading. And he probably doesn't help the typical Lenten attitude with his introduction. Return to me with your whole heart, with fasting and weeping and mourning. Anyone looking forward to anything that has that as its introduction? Recall, however, that God's ways are not our ways, and his thoughts are not our thoughts. And what he reveals to us through this season can be so much more than what we originally imagined. Very little is actually known of the prophet Joel for the time period he was specifically writing in. There's something good about this, I think. If we knew all the details of who Joel was and the time he was in, we would often begin to think, oh, his prophecies were just for that time and for that specific period, and to address that specific situation, and it doesn't really pertain to us and the times we live in. Because we don't have that detail necessarily, the first reading gives us an opportunity to believe that Joel is actually speaking to us, these times that we live in. Even now, 2022, the prophet is saying to us, return to me with your whole heart, with fasting and weeping and mourning, with fasting and prayer and almsgiving. Why would we want to do this? Because through these acts, we will see that the Lord is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and rich in kindness. This word return is important. It calls us to a real action on our part. For the moment, we stop doing what we are currently doing and turn and go back. Every year, the church gives us this season because after 10 months, we often revert back to our old ways. Just like the Israelites did, and we forget who it was that actually brought us out of our Egypt. And why don't we just go back to the time of our slavery when we had all that we needed? This is something we often criticize the Israelites for. What were they thinking when they begged Moses to bring them back to Egypt? Did they forget how they were treated there? We have to ask ourselves this very question. Do we recall what our lives were like when our sin was before us, when we were the center of our universe and not God himself? Can we return to the way of life God God calls us to, and the sharing of our blessings with those around us. In this country, we truly have abundant blessings and resources at our disposal. By giving some of these blessings up through fasting, giving some of them away through almsgiving, God reveals to us more clearly the blessings he has bestowed upon us and how none of these things really are to be the source of our happiness. Oh, it's true, I'm happier when I can drink coffee in the morning, at the office, or a bourbon at the end of the day. But the source of that happiness is not to be the item itself, rather him who provided it. My encouragement to you, brothers and sisters, is do not let the devil take the blessings of this season away from us by distracting us with the lies that he is known for. You need that coffee to wake up in the morning. You need that TV show to help unwind from the day. You need that social media account to keep informed of your relationships. You need that $20, $50, $100 in case of an emergency, or for Easter that's right around the corner. Yeah, let's think about Easter right now rather than Lent. You don't have time for that rosary today, and on and on and on. I promise you, if you go through this season and do those things that Jesus himself calls us to in this time, prayer, fasting, almsgiving, and we do them without grumbling and complaining, or to be seen by all those around us, we will come to Holy Week and to Easter itself and be able to see all the more clearly what Joel prophesied all those years ago, and see that maybe his writing is just for this time, and that the Lord was stirred to concern for his land and took pity on all of us by offering his Son up on that cross, gracious and merciful, slow to anger, rich in